showing it's 5:30. May I have a roll call, please, Janelle?
Mayor Costa?
Here.
Mr. Engel?
Here.
Mr. Hopkins?
Here.
Mr. Dozart? Here. Mr. Westbrook?
Here. Okay, we're gonna move right into our agenda, and number one on the agenda this evening is a proposed new sign for cell phone repair. Is there anyone here? Hi, Rich. How you doing? Are you Lou?
I am.
Okay, Lou.
Good to see you again.
All right.
We're taking down the existing sign that's there, using the rough brackets and putting up the channel letters with LED lighting. And the phone, the cell phone repair.
Comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is fairly simple, as the applicant stated. The frontage for this tenant space is 18 feet, so they're allowed about 36 square feet of signage. The proposal is to put up a 30.31 square foot roughly sign, so pretty straightforward. See no reason why this can't be approved. I just had a note here, to the best of my knowledge, this plaza doesn't have any additional sign restrictions approved by the city, so if that's the case, this can be approved as submitted.
All right, any other comments? How about the commission, any questions, comments? No? Motion?
Motion approved.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Good for it.
Sorry it took us so long, Lloyd.
Yeah, well, you know, you're getting better at it.
Yeah, thank you. See you next time. Next is a proposed sign replacement for the Goddard School. Do we have anyone here? Hi, how you doing? Hello. This is Joe?
Yes, I'm Joe.
Okay, good. Hi, Joe. All right, Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This one is also probably fairly straightforward, but we may need a few answers from the applicant. They are proposing to change out the existing ground sign and wall sign at 2073 Alexandria Way. The Goddard School currently occupies this facility. I believe this is part of their corporate image update for their new logo. So just a couple minor issues that need to be worked through. As far as square footage goes, they have plenty of square footage allotted to them. They're allowed 164 square feet at a minimum, and they're proposing 43.33 square feet on the wall and then the ground sign. So they're well under with regard to that issue. Regarding the wall, Exhibit B for Alexandria Square development states that sign height cannot exceed 36 inches overall, and the proposal is for 40 inches. So one of two things would have to occur. Either a variance would have to be sought, or a revision that says it'll stick to 36 or below. Sounds like the applicant's shaking his head.
Okay.
So if that's the case, that's a moot point then. So then the only remaining issue that really, I have no record of it. Again, I've been with the city since 2006, and so I think that ground sign that exists must have gone in prior to that. And the issue is that Exhibit B of the approved sign criteria states for out parcels that there are no freestanding signs permitted, but a bit of a quagmire, we have an existing freestanding sign, so I just don't know how it ever got there, and so I suggested that the research be done by the building department to determine by what process that sign was approved. Hopefully it was approved and they just didn't put it up. And so if it's an approved sign already, then, and it was done through some process, then it would just be switching out a panel. That's not an issue on a non-conforming sign. If for some reason the sign was not approved and it was constructed, which is conceivable, because that happens every day, you know, in cities, not by you,
Never.
but it happens every day by cities that you see, you know, you'll see a business put up a sign and then come back later for, you know, it's better to ask for forgiveness and permission, I guess, is the maybe some of the old adage. But I do think some research has to go into figuring out how that thing got approved, if it was approved, and if it was, then it would just be a replacement of a panel on a non-conforming sign. The alternative is, if the owners of Alexandria Square wanted to come back in, as some of the other larger retail plazas have done here in recent history, and amend their sign criteria, they could do that. They could seek approval from the planning commission to amend their sign criteria to allow freestanding signs for out parcels, but that would require action by the owner of that complex.
We have a hard enough time getting the road fixed. Any other questions, comments?
Do we need to amend it to 36, or do we just attach this to it to show
We'll
that he's
sign
got-
this one, one of these, thank you, Dave. It's just kinda interesting because I can remember back when you made your original logo, and there were some people that had a problem with the horse that was on it, and here we are now, several years later, there's no problem because it's just regular lettering.
It's pretty good.
No, it doesn't, it's kind of like a plain. Okay, no other questions? Comments? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
I guess we can make a motion to approve with the revised building sign with a contingency, I guess, that, that's building department research to see if the original sign was approved. If it's approved, then, okay, probably.
So it'll be a conditional approval.
I'll second that.
So do I have to follow through with somebody at the building department, or are
Sure.
they just gonna do that, or?
No,
No.
I don't know. Did you actually talk to a person, or are you going to, Brian?
I suggest the applicant contact either Mike Ladd, the building commissioner, or Dennis Sachs, the assistant building commissioner, and inquire about that original sign. That'd be the appropriate course, I think.
So what about the,
Your sign's approved. This, we'll be voting on this, okay, as far as approving it. But that other sign, I don't even know if that's his problem. I think Janelle, would you make a note for me to call tomorrow about the other sign?
Yeah.
That way you don't have to worry about it, you don't have to get one.
so the ground sign's not approved yet? Is that what you're
It's
saying?
conditional, I guess, yeah, it's,
Alright.
if the original one, take away for the records, yeah, we approved that was on the plan that was approved.
Okay.
So it's conditional.
You know, that's fine, if it was not in there and it just got built, we have to have you or somebody come back. Have to figure out how that.
So what about the Alexandria, whatever they're called, what do they have to do something, or not?
Are you talking about the owner of the
Yeah.
complex? Well, I suggested if there was an interest in amending this 1997 sign criteria, they could petition that to the commission. Macedonia Commons, our biggest retail plaza, has done that recently, where they amended their sign regulations. So that could be something that they really wanted to do. They could request that.
Okay.
Just recently, that we've done that within the last few years, so.
But they don't necessarily have to. That's
Right.
what
Oh, they don't have to.
comes
Okay.
out.
Yeah, when we find out. All right, so now you will do that, please, remind me. All right, motion.
Yeah, a motion and a second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? All right, there you go. Thank you very much, Joe. See you next time. We need to sign one of these, and he's starting it right there, Joe. Next on the agenda, proposed wall mount sign for Sherman Williams. Hello, how are you?
Good, yourselves?
Good. Said Dave.
David Wills, yes.
Go Bucks, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They did finally this year.
They did. Okay, Brian, first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just note, not only did they do it in football, but wrestling as well, so.
You know what, I
Very
saw
important.
that just recently, absolutely. Yep.
2 boys are wrestlers, so I gotta make sure we get that on the
Okay.
record.
Well, that one guy, he 4 times?
Yeah, so, big deal. Mr. Mayor, my memo, April 13th, and this is for Sherwin-Williams signage request. This is in the Macedonia Marketplace, a new plaza here at 82 and Route 8. We've entertained a number of signs and approved them in this plaza. This request is really no different. The tenant's frontage is a little over 43 feet, so they're entitled to a little over 87 square feet of signage. This proposal is for a little over 51 square feet, so no issue in terms of the amount or the square footage of the signage. And I just have a note, as I've done on this plaza, just to make sure the commission stays up to date, because there's so many tenants in here. Provided what's been approved to date. If this is approved this evening, it'll bring it up to just under 300 square feet, and they're allowed close to 600 square feet total, and there's 2 remaining tenants in there that would need approval. So I think they're on track to being in compliance with the code. No issue there. So I think this can be approved as submitted.
Is there any limitations with color in the plaza?
There are not. The applicant came in, Mr. Engel, I think right before you had come on the planning commission, and requested to not have limitations to allow for colors on corporate logos, and planning commission agreed to that.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? Comments? Motion? To approve?
Second.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Dave, could you, call me tomorrow
Okay.
about another sign over there? I just want to talk to you about it, all right?
All right, what time? Let me ask you this. I have to take my wife to the clinic for surgery.
Don't hurry. You take your wife, worry about that.
No, I know her. No, she's just getting a sister. I had a vascular.
Oh,
They want us to put that sign up tomorrow. And I called, I talked to Kayla, and she said that probably around 10 o'clock or 10:30, she would know the amount, and that I could have somebody over there with a check to pay for the permit. Is that okay?
yeah, sure,
Check with you
absolutely.
guys first.
Everything is good, because the sign I wanna talk to you about has nothing to do
Okay.
with this.
Well,
You're
they,
good to
you
go.
know what, they didn't even get me the stuff to apply until it was past the deadline. When they got it to me, I'm like, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'll give you a call.
Yeah, whenever, if it's not tomorrow, that's okay, because I'm looking for a sign, and I gotta figure out how to get it, so.
Okay, no problem, I'll do that.
All right,
All right,
thank you.
all right, gentlemen, thank you, have a nice evening.
You too. Next is proposed replacement faces for existing ground signs at 9769 Valley View. Hi, how you doing? Are you Chris?
No, I'm not. I work for Chris.
All right, what's your name?
My name is Yassine, Yacine. Last name is DJ, EMIL.
Do you have a card or anything?
You know what? I just get out my
No,
house.
that's all right, you got everything? All right, just so she gets your name, that's important. All right, Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pretty straightforward. This is for Merit Dental, just right down the street here. And they have an existing sign, and they're updating that sign panel. The code permits 40 square feet, and for ground monument sign, and this replacement is just under 39.02. And so it's being placed into an existing brick surround, so I see no issue with the request, and believe it can be approved as submitted at this time.
Questions, comments from the commission? Anything?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, did you get that, Jeanette? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? There you go, Yassine. Thank you very much. Next, we have proposed installation of lighted bollards. Hi, come on down. Are you Robert? Hi. Good. Where's that one you owe me? No, I'm kidding.
And he's sitting there.
All right, now, Brian.
Thank-
Yes, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a request to install bollard posts with lights in the posts in the Golden Lake Shopping Center. You know, I think this is a fairly straightforward request. My only concern with this request is that the site plan that was provided really doesn't tell me where the lights are going. So I think it should not be an issue to approve it, but I think we need a more detailed site plan that shows where those posts are gonna be going. And then, also, depending on the location, it may be needed to have a photometric plan to make sure there's no light spill at the property lines. Other than that, if those two items can be accomplished by the applicant, then really don't see any reason why the posts can't be approved in that development.
I believe there's some engineer comments on this. Could you read those, please, Jenna?
A detailed engineering review will be conducted prior to issuance of any zoning permits. Applicant will be required to provide a more detailed plan in accordance with CO 113705. The following items will be required to be included with the plan submittal: site plan showing existing proposed conditions, electrical plan, concrete joint plans for walk, detail and limits for asphalt drive repair work, and conceptual plan approval is recommended.
All right.
We provided the electrical plan and cross sections of the concrete sites. I'm not sure what they're all saying. But I can address the, Mr. Francis issue very easy. The site, the site plan, I think it sounds a bit bigger than what it is. All we own is the little strip
stores,
between
yeah.
Lowe's and Target.
Right.
So the sidewalk we're replacing is the sidewalk between Lowe's and Target.
Okay.
And in order to get the runoff to go the right way and not into the storefronts, which is, we didn't build it, we bought it, and, you know, you buy everything with their faults and everything.
Sure.
It drains the wrong way.
Okay.
They've made some, the previous owner made some haphazard attempts to try to stop that by putting little trench drains in. It didn't work. So what, we've been out there with the surveyor and the engineer. We have to change the grade of the sidewalk and taper it down. And so by the time it gets out to the pavement, instead of being like 1.5 inches of a trip thing, we're gonna fade it in so it's basically like a handicap ramp all the way across there. It's all smooth. And so then when you have that, then to keep people from
Exactly.
driving we're gonna install these lighted bollards. They're 4 feet tall.
Yeah, they look nice.
So they're 4 feet tall, and you can see where they are. They're right here. You won't even be able to see them out here to the end of the parking lot, let alone it's not gonna be an issue with anybody, any neighbors, because it's tight. It's isolated right in this little spot
Right,
in front of those
right.
4 stores.
I tried to look at that, and at first I didn't know where that was, because I'm not as good at reading
Okay.
drawings, so Janelle filled me in. But, what about the wiring? How are you gonna get electricity out?
There's
Did
already
you-
wiring out there.
Oh, there's wiring?
There's wiring out there because there's lights on the front of the building on a column. And
I see.
We're just gonna, it's a simple, these are all low voltage
Yeah,
LED.
right, LED,
So we're gonna run it down,
low voltage.
it'll be on the same timer as the 4 wall sconce lights.
Okay.
It's really a very minor project.
Well, what we have to do is, still get the okay from the engineer, all right? So, I think what we need is a conditional approval.
That was sent in, that's
Okay, I didn't
it's
see
a
that.
cross section of concrete, it's not really.
Anybody see this? Oh, well, just,
But we can, I'll do that in a little.
you have one of these? No?
Yeah.
Yeah?
You do?
Yeah.
Okay, well then that means next saw.
I think he was talking about some other stuff. I guess he says needs site plan, showing the proposed conditions. I think maybe just showing where the stuff's at, electrical plan. I don't know if we need something more detailed than what we can have there, but we would not. The concrete joint plan. I don't think he's necessarily talking about the cross section there. that you had.
Well, he wants to know the salt cut joint plan?
Yeah, I think so. I don't, well, I'm just trying to interpret. And
Those
then
are some, we don't even need those on.
details was noticed for asphalt drive repair work, I think, just there's some driveway work.
I'll tell you what,
Maybe use other,
No.
we'll give you a conditional.
Okay.
We'll work on conditional. Give them a call, talk it over with them. It might be a 5-minute conversation and you're all
I
set.
mean, I thought there was more work than what.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is, it's not as big and exciting as it sounds.
Looking at these aren't designed to stop a car from going into the building, they're just to give them warning that there's a building in front of them. I don't see,
Right, yeah, they're metal, they're not,
there's not gonna be a curb there anymore, do they need something?
There's like 16
more
of them.
substantial?
Well, being it's typically for crash protection, I usually consider people to be sitting outside. But, yeah, typically those would have to be 3 or 4 feet into the ground for crash protection, built concrete.
You have a lift there now, correct?
Yeah, there's a lift there now.
It's-
So
right now,
but he's doing it won't be when they're done.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like for handicapped. It's
Well, yeah, there's a
ramp.
handicap ramp, but there's
All
still
right.
a curb
And-
the rest of the way across there. Just
People were pulling up there to drop people off, is the way I was told. So this would discourage that, you just pull next to it instead of pulling up on the sidewalk.
They would, yeah.
Is that the idea?
Yeah, they would still pull the same way, they just obviously, they're not, it'd be hard for them to get up on the
Well,
sidewalk.
somebody told me that did happen. All right.
Yeah, it happens
But
every
it'll-
day,
that
people
happens
jump the
every-
curbs
I
and
have
drive
to go
into
through
their
front of
building.
buildings,
Sure.
yeah.
Well, do you think that's necessary, Frank?
A lot of glass frontage there, it's not like it's brick.
For the perspective, if you look at the front of Target, it's got a handicap ramp all the way in front of its,
But they have big
Entrance.
concrete balls
and
or
they have,
something
they
there.
have a red ball there and a red ball there, so you can drive through it real easy if you need to. Yeah,
That's not my call, it's the fire department call, I was looking at that, and I thought, well, that's not much of a barrier.
You okay with it? Do I have a motion? Condition.
Yeah, conditional approval, make motion for conditional approval, based on the engineer's comments.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There you go. Do you have Nick Keenan's phone number?
no.
Do you have, do you have anybody's phone number? What do you usually call?
Oh, I've got phone numbers.
All right, then call Janelle or whoever you're calling, ask him, that's our engine,
Okay.
all right?
Will
And
do.
I'm sure it'll work out.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Next, we have proposed exterior and interior remodel and signs for Wendy's. I looked at this, I had no idea. Hi, how you doing? Okay, who do we have with us today, so I can make sure it's,
My name is Don Warman.
that's you right here.
Yes, sir. I'm the architect, and this is Bob Bolton, who's the
Oh,
owner.
hi, how you doing?
Yeah.
All right. All right, let's start off with Brian this evening. Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My April 14th memo, this is a signage update for Wendy's located at 660 East Aurora Road in the Macedonia Commons Shopping Plaza. The applicant's proposing to remove the existing building signage, replace it with the updated corporate image. Reviewed their request and have some comments. The signs that are being proposed, a 31.99 square foot wall sign on the north building elevation. On the east building elevation are two signs, a 30.79 square foot sign and a 31.99 square foot wall sign. And then on the west building elevation, 42.3 square foot wall sign. Total area of all the signage is 137.07 square feet. Their building frontage, as you know, chapter 117903 F2 allows 2 square feet of identification signage per lineal foot of frontage. In this case, they have 80 feet, allowing them 160 square feet of identification signage. And they actually can have more area because they're a corner lot. But given the 160, the 137 that's being proposed is permissible. My only concern relates to the east elevation, and on east elevation, you technically have 2 separate signs. The applicants provided us with a color rendition of the building elevations. If you look at that, number 3 and number 5 on the east elevation, those are 2 separate signs, and chapter 117903 C1 limits each building frontage to a single sign. So either the applicant could seek a variance from the Board of Zoning Appeals, or what I think is probably a much easier fix would be to move the one of the 2 signs and combine it into one. So the number 3 could go under number 5, or number 5 can go on top of number 3, and you'd have a single sign compliant with the code. Answer any questions if you have any.
All right, that's it? All right, we have comments from Dennis Saxon.
According to the county records for Wendy's building, it was built in 1993, one of the first new buildings in the area of East Aurora Road, and seemed to have set the architectural character for the new town center standards, which followed shortly thereafter. The roof detailing with the soldier course horizontal beams and prominent pilasters at the corners, and even the exterior light fixtures, would seem to be what the authors of the town center standards may have in mind when passing section 117203 of the zoning code in 1995. The proposed remodel had several new materials, including large stucco areas, exterior tile, variegated metal panels, and metal trim covering the double soldier course of brick above the front and side dining area windows. Of these new materials, the large amount of stucco and the corrugated metal panels are noted as inappropriate under sections 1172-02 A10 and 1172-03 B2C. While the removal of the prominent corner pilasters are design features noted as desirable in section 1172-03 B3. The proposed remodel seems to be contrary to section 1172-02 A5, which states architectural details and ornamentation shall be meaningful to the overall design and appropriate for the size, scale, proposed structures, and harmonious with other architectural details and ornamentation, including those used on adjacent structures.
So you're right in the middle of the town center, and you need a Western Reserve look. Was your architect aware of that?
I'm the architect, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. A little background, if I may. Wendy's has been trying to reimage their stores for the better part of 5 years. I don't know if you've seen some of the remodels or new stores that they've built in that time. What we presented tonight is the 2015 version of their, what they call image activation program. It's something that's been done nationally with, I believe, great success. So our walking orders from Wendy's are basically consistency. They would like to see similar, if not the same details that we're doing on all their stores. So speaking to Dennis, I mean, he certainly let us know that we had issues with the design guidelines, but we wanted to come in front of the board to show you what our typical Wendy's remodel would look like.
Okay. Well, you've done that. You know, whenever we have something going up in Macedonia, we always make them do things might not have to do in other locations. And they do it so that they can be here. And they can operate here. I don't think it would be fair to allow those people to be able to change their images just so they could be here. If not, the city would allow something like this right on the corner, in the middle of all the Western Reserve architecture. So so that could be a problem. All right. Would you like to see if you could work that out first with Dennis? I mean, it's up to him to give us the insight into this, because after all, he's an architect like you. All right, as to if there was any way possible that we could make it work.
No, we certainly want to work with staff on the board to, if something's acceptable. I mean, he's been here for over 20 years, and he wants to
Oh,
see
yeah, that's a great corner there, and the building's nice. That's the beginning of when we started looking like we do. So,
And quite honestly, that was built differently than the stores were being built at that time.
See.
So,
well, you know what, there's a lot of things that have changed. For instance, logos for a long time were a no-no, and you can hear now today, just some of the sign people talking, where logos are not a problem anymore. They work, because they help to identify. So I understand exactly where you're coming from, trying to look for easy identification. But the Wendy's girls do a great job of identifying. There's no two ways about that. But I don't think that, in my opinion, this would be allowable in a Western Reserve style. I'm sorry.
no, we're, we will work with staff and the board.
Well, then, what we would need to do is wait for you to do that, because passing this or not will depend on that. And Dennis isn't here today, so I can't make any promises for you. He's sick, but I do think you should do that before coming back before us, unless somebody feels that I'm mistaken.
Agree.
Make a motion
Okay.
to table it at this time.
All right, I have a motion.
Design, or it's just a blade?
Well, some of the things that we have a problem with this stucco, that's one. And then the coloring, that's another. I can tell you at least 3 other places that wanted to do the paneling, the coloring, and we wouldn't let it. So if we would let that happen now, we could be in real problems, because we've set a precedent where you can't do that.
When you say the coloring,
The color red,
okay, that is looking color.
though not the Wendy color for lettering or something like that, but not the face of the
Okay.
building.
And all the metal corrugated stuff, something that you're not allowed in Western Reserve.
Is this the metal corrugated we're talking about? I couldn't see what the.
Oh, this is, that is a
Yeah,
tile,
I see.
actually a
Right.
ceramic tile,
Yes,
it's
right.
also, the building.
We have a motion to table.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Dennis will be in, I'm sure, soon. He's got the flu, so I can't tell you exactly when, but if you would talk to him, please, and see if we can work this out in another way. We sure want you here. We sure want Wendy's here.
They're getting a 40% lift in building sales, which could be $800,000 in revenue. And that's what we're counting on.
It's a full interior remodel too, it's a new look that.
Oh, well, that's all good stuff, except for, believe me, we've already turned that down just recently for others. First example that pops in my mind is Dunkin' Donuts. All right, Dunkin' Donuts had some things in their plans that we said, no, you can't do that, you have to keep it looking as Western Reserve as you can. And that doesn't look Western Reserve. So the Western Reserve motif is the law. It was an ordinance passed. So we can't vary from it.
There's no problem with any of the interior design.
I don't know if they.
Well, let's put it this way. The planner is going to be working with our codifieds, and that doesn't cover inside. And then our engineer is the one that looks at the rest of it in our building department. And they'll be working with you on but I don't anticipate hearing anything because we didn't get any report from anybody being negative.
Okay.
I think the inside usually, as long as you are meeting, you know, electric codes and that kind of thing, we don't get too hung up on, we don't like the way you played it. You know, we don't,
No.
that's kind of your deal.
Yes.
It's more for the appearance, the outside, that kind of stuff, traffic. If you were making some major parking lot changes, we'd look at that, but I don't think we'll do that. So it's, we deal mainly just with the outside.
The man behind you will be giving you if something's wrong with the inside to be unsafe. Done. All right, that's all I'm concerned about, really.
We just wanna let you know, it's a full dining room remodel, bathroom remodel, it's a for
Great.
Wendy's inside and outside.
Great, that's all good stuff.
Pretty cool stuff, so,
I would say if you weren't in the position that you're at right now in Macedonia, that would look great anywhere you wanna put it. But right now in Macedonia, we have a precedent set, we have an ordinance in effect, we cannot get go. Oh, yeah, they got turned down, period, flat. That's another one, see? So, this is the course we've taken.
it's very clear, and the design guidelines are very clear. I mean, we've got Wendy's corporate also to give us approval for, so that's part of our.
The 20-year franchise agreement is up, and if they intend to have the leverage, so if we can't make it work, there's a possibility they wouldn't give me the 20 years and we'd have to close. I'm just in the middle of it. It's not, this isn't what I want, this is what Wendy's wants. So.
Well, if they close that store, that'd be a big mistake, I think, on their part.
I don't think they will, but that's the hand they have at this point.
Yeah, I understand, but, I'll give you some instances where that's worked the other way. For instance, if you look at Taco Bell, every Taco Bell building looked the same. Look at the Taco Bell in Macedonia. You'll never ever see another Steak and Shake that's built out of brick. Parts of it are still identifiable, but there are certain things that we can allow you to do, and that's not one. So talk to Dennis, see what you can work out, and we absolutely listen to his recommendations. Okay?
Real quick before we go, did you have any thoughts on the sign? Should we do signs on one side? I don't know, I mean, we just tabled the thing, but I mean, so you definitely gotta come back, but, you know, the issue of having two separate signs on the side, do you trust me to combine them or BZA?
I really don't wanna do a variance, but at the same time, we're gonna be spending about $500,000. How I don't understand yet, but, so 70% of our business is drive-through, so I wanna be able to spend a few dollars so that the drive-through customers say that they see the money. So that was the only thing.
Yes, you have
The south side doesn't have anything, and that's where people come in for the drive-thru.
But I think, Brian, if they move the Wendy's and the Wendy over top, that kind of,
Yeah.
with the single sign, I think that would, you know, if you wanted to see this here, by the drive-thru, but
Yeah, you
if that's
got
something you
that.
guys can look at, we've got a little bit of time, I guess, because you gotta come back for the other stuff.
Right, yeah, I don't think we want to do variance, we would find a way to combine these or perhaps, this is just an applied sign, this is illuminated, this is just an applied sign. So,
It might even look better than that. Because it's right there under your name.
right. No, we'll work with,
Good. All right. I don't think we voted on that tabling. I had a motion and a second. Yes, correct. We voted on it? Okay, we're all set. Work with them. All right, thanks.
Is it not the next time you get?
Yes.
Because just the time was quicker past. Do you think you could?
we have 17 days before the hearing is, so we've got a couple of weeks to get something like that passed.
Good, good.
That'll be the plan, is to see the next plan.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Next is the proposed fence and gravel storage lot at 1290 East Highland. Hi, how you doing?
We're getting gray, I won't let it grow like that, it gets gray.
I know that.
You think?
All right, let's hear what Brian has to say. Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Request for 1290 East Highland Outdoor Storage Yard. The applicant's proposing a 56 by 80, which is about 4,480 square foot outdoor storage area. And it's situated sort of behind the main building in an area that'll be fenced off by a 6-foot tall chain link fence. Section 116904B2 identifies outdoor storage as a permitted use subject to performance standards outlined in 116904F1 through 5. Upon review of those standards, I found that the request is substantially in compliance with the code, with the exception of the side yard setback. The proposal illustrates an encroachment into the required 15-foot side yard setback. Typically, encroachments like this would require a variance from the Board of Zoning Appeals, but the code does provide the Planning Commission under 116904F5 the authority to grant a lesser storage setback when the applicant's demonstrated through unique and sensitive design of the building and site such abundant landscaping, berming, and screening that the purposes of the setback standard have been achieved, and that a reduced setback will have no material adverse impact on the surrounding properties. The proposal to screen the outdoor storage area with a 6-foot tall chain link fence, in my opinion, doesn't necessarily represent that unique screening option. In fact, really, a chain link fence doesn't really screen things from view. It just separates them on the property. So my suggestion would be to have the applicant prepare some sort of a landscape plan to screen that storage area. Since there's site work contemplated with the project, some berming could be put in place to adjacent to the side and rear of the storage area. That could be an option as well, with some trees, shrubs on top of that. That's, I think, something that would be unique, a little more unique than just the chain link fence, and would then help justify the Planning Commission to allow that encroachment into the setback. If that's not an option, then the applicant still always has the remaining option of a variance through the Board of Zoning Appeals. I'll answer any questions you may have.
All right, any other comments?
Some from Nick.
Okay.
Proposed grading shall be provided such that stormwater runoff is directed into the existing catch basin located within the adjacent paved area. A typical section should be provided for the proposed gravel pavement.
Are these arrows the drainage?
Which is the exact range that's there now. By actual NDPDS phase 2, you can't change the flow of the stormwater from going into that catch basin to another property. That's federal law. I'm actually certified on something for state.
There you
So
go.
everything I'm doing is exactly to plan. Also, our president called Dennis, and we were told the 6-foot chain link fence was fine. We asked what the code was, 3 feet from the edge. I personally went there, including with our vice president, we're all told the same thing. So I'm trying to figure out today I get a letter that says screening and everything else. So,
Well,
we did exactly
Yes.
what your people said, and now all of a sudden, 3 hours before I come here, I get a change.
All right, well, not all our people said that.
Okay.
The person you wanted to talk to was Brian, and of course, he's not here all the time, if there might be something else. There's nothing wrong with the chain link
Mhm.
fence. Also worried about is visibility. Again, too, this gets into the image
Right.
building that we're after. I'm sure if we could give you conceptual approval, if you could do something with screening.
Well, what do you want? I mean, you wanna move it around
Shrubs.
15 feet? I really don't care. It don't matter to me.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll be honest with you, I mean, last time we went through this, we just bought another building somewhere else.
In Highland, on Highland Road, I thought there were some areas where you weren't supposed to have outside storage.
You're absolutely correct, until we passed legislation just recently, so now that whole side of the street is
We're
gentlemen.
probably one of the only companies that doesn't have a chain link fence right now.
Yeah,
To be honest, everyone keeps
Well,
outside
that-
storage, everyone
Alright.
keeps their
What's
trucks
the
outside.
problem?
My trucks are inside every night.
what's the problem? It's too far forward?
Yeah, the code requires a 15-foot setback off the property line. So if you moved it
I'll move it 15 feet, huh?
and you're out of that setback, then there's no issue.
I mean, I
On
got
the
no
side
issue.
yard.
I'll move over 15 feet.
It doesn't even have to be 50, I mean, it's the difference between what you've got and side yard setback.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's set 4 feet right now. That's what's set right now. It's 4 feet, 'cause we were told 3, so I told them, let's go 4, so we don't have a problem. So that was
Well,
my call,
Yeah,
From the property line?
for the property line, yeah.
Looks like it's-
It's actually, believe it or not, that plan, the original plan, for some reason, is off. I actually went out and looked at the pins myself.
all right. So,
You want me to just give you-
we have the ability to conditionally approve that we're gonna do it just the way he said he's gonna move it back, and we're within specs.
Yeah, I think we could give conditional approval, yeah, bring a plan that shows that, and you keep it 15 feet off, then I think Brian's issue goes away, because we don't need to go with special rules or anything, or add extra landscape.
Does that
take care of what about this issue?
I could do that. No, I mean, as far as
The drainage concerns they have.
Actually, the drainage
Has to be that.
has to be that way by
Right, I know,
EPA phase 2. It's going there now. You can't impede that to
Right, I understand.
surface water.
I think that's what he was saying, wasn't it, was he said he wanted it going into that?
It
Can
is.
you
Okay,
read
so
that again,
there's no difference
please?
between what you're saying and what he's saying.
That's right.
The proposed grading shall be provided such as stormwater runoff is directed into the existing catch basin located within the adjacent paved area.
It is.
It is.
So that's why I don't understand why.
I saw the arrows and I
Right.
thought that, so, okay, I don't see a problem with that. Having said that, do I have a motion?
I'd make a motion to conditionally approve, plan, with administrative review for the 15 side yard setback.
That's front end, or east and south, correct?
Yeah, I think
All the way around, right?
Problem is that we're going to the south end of the two, not just this side.
I just wanna make sure.
just needs to stay out of the side yard setback, so I think they're fine on the rear yard, is that?
That's what I'm asking.
It's
I'm making
only
sure.
size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
just making sure.
Yeah, just needs to
Okay.
move on to your property more and out of the setback. I think Dennis was right in the information he gave you, he just, I don't think, he may have not have been aware of that 15-foot
Okay.
requirement under that section, but the fencing, that's fine as long as it's out of that.
Okay. That's easy.
All right, so we have a conditional motion.
I'll second that.
We have a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? There you go.
Okay, now, just submit a drawing change?
Well, that would be needed to keep on record, so
Right.
that we have the exact drawing of the way it's gonna be in your done.
Okay.
That's a conditional part,
Not a problem.
and your drainage looks fine to us, so.
Hey, sir.
All right, yeah, we'll
Let's
see
see.
it, Tom. There we go. Okay, last item on the agenda this evening is proposed site plan and approval for the Highland Point Parkway Ambassador Football Complex. Hi. Okay. Nice to see you. How are you, Bill? Okay. Do we have names to announce? Do you need cards or anything? You're good? Okay. All right, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I figured everybody wasn't here for the cell phone repair shop signage. I'll go ahead and read my comments in their entirety, so I think that's what everybody's here for, this issue. My memo dated April 14th regarding the Ambassador Football Complex conceptual site plan. The applicants revised their site plan and is proposing to construct a football complex off of Highland Point Parkway. The project now includes an approximate 27,000 square foot building with 107 off-street parking spaces. The subject site is located in the limited industrial district. I've reviewed the application, including a site plan dated April 3rd, 2015, and have the following comments for the Planning Commission's consideration. First bullet point, section 116903B7 permits indoor and outdoor private recreation facilities. However, this section of the code also contains language that states all activities related to the permitted uses in the LI district must be contained wholly within an enclosed building. It's my understanding the proposal is to construct an indoor soccer arena, and all uses other than the parking will be contained indoors. Second bullet point, section 116903F2B requires a 150-foot side yard setback when abutting residential properties. The proposal provides a 155 foot, slightly over 155 foot setback, side yard setback adjoining the residential property line, so it's compliant with the code. Section 1169.03G sets a minimum building height of 35 feet, and according to the site plan, the building is 22 feet 1 inch tall. This building height is being achieved by excavating into the ground to maintain a quote shorter building. Essentially, they're sinking the building into the ground to maintain the 35-foot requirement. The next bullet point, a site plan according to section 113705 of the code is required for approval. Section 113705F does provide the Planning Commission a venue to meet informally to review preliminary plans prior to the preparation of final plans. I believe that's what the applicant is here for this evening, is not seeking a formal approval at this time, but more of a conceptual review to assist them with the layout of the site prior to the final site plan approval. My next bullet point regarding screening, extensive screening and buffering should be considered along the rear yard of the houses abutting the west side of the property. These houses are accessed from South Bedford Road and are zoned R1 Residence District. The current proposal illustrates a row of 75 arborvitae along this property line. In my opinion, a 5 to 6 foot tall landscape mound should be installed the length of the building and the off-street parking area. On top of the landscape mound, the applicant should place a variety of landscape materials. Arborvitae can be used, but I'd suggest pines and other screening trees, not just one species. This is really not a recommended approach, because if that single arborvitae, one of those arborvitae gets a disease, the entire row will be dead pretty quickly. So maintaining a good balance of coniferous and deciduous screening trees along that mound, I think, is essential. That approach would reduce and eliminate light pollution from any vehicle headlights aiming toward the adjoining residential. I did talk to the applicant about this, and they're perfectly fine with it. They wanted to get something out on the plan to show that their intent is to screen that area and understand my concern, and I think we're more than willing to work with the city arborist to detail a nice landscape plan to screen that area.
Yes.
My next bullet point regarding architectural building elevations shown on sheet A6. Those elevations should be reviewed by the city architect for compliance with chapter 1172 of the code. I think the city architect has opined regarding that issue, and Janelle will read that momentarily. My final two bullet points, sheet ES1 provides details about site lighting and a photometric plan that illustrates the lighting proposed for this development, and it shows that the lighting will not carry on to adjacent properties. It has full horizontal cutoff. The Planning Commission is held to industry standards for lighting levels, and this proposal, I believe, adheres to those standards. And my final bullet point regarding traffic, a traffic impact analysis has been completed. The city engineer should review that study and determine if the improvements needed for this property are being accommodated. The traffic study does note that a traffic light will be necessary if a future phase of the project is constructed. I believe Nick Feeney has provided some comments that Janelle will read momentarily. So my conclusion for this particular request, the proposed use is permitted, and the conceptual site plan is adequate to convey the intent of the project. At this time, I suggest conceptual site plan approval be provided so the applicant can begin to really examine the finer details of the property and the site and determine how compliance of the performance standards can be achieved. But I do think that strong attention should be given to the screening and buffering of the adjacent residential properties. I'll answer any questions the commission may have.
Questions?
Yeah, I had a question on the traffic impact. It's my understanding that the light at, is it South Bedford is turned off because of problems, traffic backing up over the bridge, and the police chief doesn't want to operate that light. Was that part of the traffic study?
I think you need to hear that. It's in quite detail, that traffic study, and it
Did
talks about
it,
that.
all right.
And actually, well, I'll let her read it first, and then you and I'll talk. Could you please read Nick's traffic study comment?
You just want me to read the traffic study ones, or all the comments?
Well, right now, we're talking about the traffic study, and there's a lot of comments.
Concern exists regarding the date the traffic counts were performed, as the Nordonia Schools District had a calamity day due to the weather. It was not in session. It is well known that the.
Can I stop you right there for a
Yeah.
minute? That's a problem right there. This traffic study was done and then went to session.
Well, but it's, my point was, it's my understanding that the police chief doesn't want to operate that light, and that, I'm not sure if that was part of the traffic study too.
It should be,
So I'm
yes.
saying we need to have a traffic study before we proceed to make sure that we can conceptually do it.
Kevin, any thoughts on this?
I'm not sure, I hadn't heard why, I was always kind of wondering too, when the lights up the roads a little bit, but I wasn't sure if it was, and his concern may have been before the bridge was there, that it didn't run back and get onto the railroad tracks, I'm not sure.
I've heard the opposite, that it's because of cars coming down over the bridge, and then if the traffic is stopped up, he doesn't want to get a lot of rear enders. But I think I think we need Chief Golden's input on this, that's all I'm suggesting.
Well, what were your thoughts of that being done on the day?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the peaks really of the school is gonna match the peak of the facility, so I don't know. You know, the school is busiest when they're getting out of school, but that's not when the soccer place would be busiest, because kids are probably at minimum get home, it's gonna be those same kids going over there to use it. So I don't know if there was 200 cars additional coming out of South Bedford, I don't know what time is it, 3:30 or something like that. Down the road, the busy time is gonna be 5 and on for the evening. So I don't know if that matters as much, but it would have been nice if it wasn't a calamity day, so that
Yes.
no questions were asked. Was there any other traffic volumes affected that day because kids were off with the parents home? I don't remember whether, I'm not sure what day that was, but was that a really terrible day, or was it one of those ones that, boy, I wish we hadn't canceled
I
school,
don't
because it
think-
really wasn't
Do
that
you
bad?
know?
The date that it was done, I actually haven't studied, so I
Yeah.
can figure that out.
Well, I got about that far and I was starting to think, is this study really going to tell us what we want?
I think the rest of Nick's comments say that it doesn't. I mean, I got it at 4:30 and
Yeah.
I read Nick's comments, and it sounds to me like the two engineers, GDP reviewed it, right?
GPD. Okay.
Yeah, they reviewed it on behalf of the city. They need to get with TMS,
Yes.
our guys, and talk engineering talk to engineering talk.
Yes.
And then our guys need to do whatever
Whatever
needs to be
Nick-
done. I
Yeah.
mean,
Right.
it seems to me like they got 80% of it, but they didn't get the rest of it because of that. And because I don't think they took into account that traffic light.
Can you read the last comment on there? I think it was the last comment. On next comment.
Because there's a lot of
I
comments,
know.
but if we're gonna be redoing this, why go through all
Well,
that?
this is important.
Okay, let's hear it.
Well, the
Let's
last
hear it.
yeah, go ahead, read it.
Let's hear it,
I'll
so
interpret
everybody knows.
Because they're talking engineering speak.
That's all
Okay.
right.
GPD Group recommends that even if the study is revised and continues to justify that installation of a new traffic signal at the Highland Road, Highland Point Parkway intersection, the traffic signal should be installed and operated in flash mode until such time that new traffic counts can be taken after the proposed facility is open, showing that the actual volumes do in fact meet the necessary traffic signal warrants.
All right, now, you're aware that's a different light. We're talking two different lights.
I am.
Okay, just so you're
That
aware.
light is the light at the end of the driveway.
Island point.
Right.
Right, that's the light we were studying to determine whether or not a light was necessary. And I think the engineer's saying it's gonna be difficult to tell until you get a functioning building there. Put it in, we're not gonna know how to time that light till you get in there. So install it, put it in flashing mode, and then once we get some real hard data of actual use, then they can help us time
But
it.
that was contingent, as far as I read it, it was contingent on if with phase one of this project, if it was required.
Yeah,
So they're saying if it's required, then it should be installed in flash mode until you do a study later and then decide how to time it out. That's how I interpreted it.
But still, the issue of the chief is saying he doesn't wanna operate the light further down, I believe, and this is even closer to the bridge. I'm just saying, I think we ought to get the chief's part of this.
I agree, it's just a shame that we got such a late timing on the traffic study, and then by the time Nick and his people reviewed it, there wasn't a whole lot of time, and it left me kinda wanting, just like Dave is here, where we need to know a little better, about how that traffic's gonna flow. We're both concerned with that.
well, we've already,
Anything else you want us to, you think might be important? And the only reason I'm asking is he's an engineer, so he.
Yeah, I mean, the study says, you know, by the second phase, you're gonna need it, but there were some questions in the review about how they determined what the traffic
Right.
volume were gonna
Sure.
be. You know, I do these kind of reports, and I also spend a lot of time at these soccer facilities with 4 kids that play. I don't know that it's gonna be that high traffic volumes or what is shown in here. It seems a little bit much, especially just the first phase, but even with the second phase, because you only have one full indoor field.
Correct.
Place. I mean, there's only so many kids that can be there at a time, even if it's a packed team, 20 kids on each side, and every kid comes separately, that's 40 people showing up. This is showing like 180 people showing up. You know, that's, you know, I don't know how you maybe you have that once a year when you have some tournament and you're running games sideways in the fields instead of long ways.
we're trying to be conservative.
Yeah, so it might be overstated, but if you're overstating it, then that's justifying a signal that doesn't need to be there.
Right.
And if to do what they were suggesting, put the signal up, turn it on flash, and maybe, you know, what if the counts come out, man, there's only like 40 people coming, signal's not warranted, you just spent $125,000
That's
to put
right.
a signal that you'll never turn on. I mean, a better option might be if it's warranted, if you could live for a year without it, is put money in an escrow account. So I've seen this done before. The city holds on to it. You have the signal designed or something like that, so the plans are sitting there, all the stuff is ready to go. If the thing goes up, and man, we need that signal bad. You guys have the money already set aside to build that thing, or, you know, you watch it for a couple of years, we've seen it's pretty good, it's not that bad, release the escrow account, is a thought.
That's the thought, that's a good thought.
Because all these facilities are different, you know. They actually called me about the traffic study, and I told them, I can't do it. I sent the
Right.
commissioner, like, oh, that's
Right.
you. So, yeah, it's like, but I, you know, gave a couple suggestions. Yeah, there's some other facilities you may want to check out to see what their traffic volumes are. TMS chose to do it based on parking spaces, which is somewhat doable, but it may be overestimating. Doing it the other way of, you know, studying it might be worth doing, putting the escrow account, then at least you get some actual real volumes to determine if the signal's
I
warranted.
knew you would have something to advise us.
That's
a
what
good
I
idea.
suggestions.
All right, now we have some other comments from Nick, so why don't you read the other ones? Right now, the traffic study's on hold. Okay.
A separate planning commission submittal will be required for the phase 2 site plan. Engineering recommends that the stormwater management basin shall be designed to account for total site improvements for phase 1 and phase 2 at this time. A full engineering submittal will be needed to provide prior to issuance of engineering approval. Submittal shall comply with CO 1137-05 for site plans and CO 923 for erosion and sediment control and post-construction stormwater quality. An LTMA and permanent easement will be required for the proposed stormwater management facility. Stormwater design shall be in accordance with the latest edition of the Summit County Engineers Stormwater Management Manual.
Okay. Are there any other questions
I got it.
of Nick?
you know, Nick mentioned they have to submit for the phase two, but if you guys develop the phase two far enough along to let the city see it, to make sure that there's no, I mean, are you okay if the phase two could never get approved for some reason? Or have you looked into that deep enough to know that since we don't need any variances for the second phase, it meets all the, you know, A to B, you know?
We met with staff for their advice, showing them a redesign. We realized that this will be 2 years out. We were told we'll have to make a completely new
Submission.
Submission, yeah. We'd have to apply all new if we did phase two. But we did design it, and like we said, we're putting it into the ground so that we listen to the neighbors' comments and we know that we can comply with the zoning code for 1 and 2, but if there's some reason we can't.
If there's some reason it never happens, then it doesn't happen, but we're pretty certain that we've designed to accommodate phase two.
So phase two is also gonna be only 22 feet tall.
No, it'll be
less than
taller, but it'll be
35.
less than 35 feet according to the code, based on how the code measures the roof.
Okay. And is phase two gonna then require a change in the the side yard setback, which I think there was.
No,
It
there'll be
will
no
also-
variance.
Also comply with, so.
So in other words, there's no variances anywhere.
No, and it didn't make any sense for us to bring phase two in because we're gonna have to do it all over again in 2 years if we can do it.
I just
For
wanna
real.
make sure that either you're pretty confident two will pass, no variances, and or you're comfortable if you miss something that, okay, if we were only stuck with phase one, the whole thing's not gonna go belly up.
Yes,
we're
right.
screwed. Yeah, I don't want you to be in that situation, by your application this.
Okay, we also had some other comments, from Don. Don?
Yes, hopefully that, you know, just from a pre-construction concept as far as exits and egress out of there, especially the field being at below ground. The plan shows no exit doors or stairwells on east or west side, it's only on the north-south side, so, and any yard hydrants, fire department connections, egress, sprinkler alarms, and also there's no elevator shown, so if there's gonna be any ADA requirements in there. So just to hopefully put that into your conceptual thoughts for.
Since we're having a conceptual meeting, these are good thoughts to keep in mind.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, that's what we wanted to get, was your conceptual stuff. We're taking all that into account as we have continuously.
Yes.
To make sure that we comply with what you want. And we'd be happy before we even submit, if you've got time to sit down with you and go over our distances and all of those.
Dennis had a conceptual issue on brick and siding.
Yes.
I
Could
don't know
you
if
read
it
Dennis,
just came out
please?
Yeah.
today.
The proposed building exterior is 2-color metal siding, as are several other buildings in the industrial park. The building has been sunk into the ground to avoid any need for a height variance. It would help to have masonry in the form of brick or split face block along the walls for column lines C, C1, A1, and 2A. So there's some contrast with the metal siding and introduce a second texture rather than all metal siding.
I'll agree with that.
See which ones those are.
Yeah.
Yep.
All
I
right,
would agree with that.
okay. So that'll take care of the look with the side that face.
I'll
the street.
redesign it and go to Dennis and get his approval.
There you go, all right.
Absolutely.
We had an opinion today from Joe Deemer. Do you have that opinion?
No.
I'll give you one, as soon as I print it up from some. Read this into minutes.
Okay.
You both have.
Yeah. Dear Commissioners, as you know, the proposed use that is above caption has raised concern and questions. Zoning laws can sometimes lend themselves to different interpretations. However, this proposed use does not leave room for disagreement. I have previously provided an initial opinion as to the question of whether the Ambassadors Football Complex would constitute a private or a public recreation facility under the city's zoning code. My opinion was and remains that the Ambassadors Complex would constitute a private recreation facility as more fully explained hereafter. Macedonia Codified Ordinance 1169-03 sets forth the zoning regulations for limited industrial or LI districts within the city. The primary purpose of the LI district is to provide for limited manufacturing, storage, distribution, and wholesaling facilities. While the LI regulations recognize that LI permitted uses may not be compatible with residential district uses, permitted LI uses that have activities, with the exception of off-street parking, carried out in an enclosed building can be satisfactorily located in the LI areas, near residential or other zoning districts. See MCO 1169-03A. This is consistent with the fact that churches and schools, which often has gymnasiums and host events, including sporting events, are permitted uses in residential districts. See MCO 1163-02A3. Among other permitted uses, private recreational facilities, whether indoor or outdoor, are permitted in LI districts. MCO 1169-03B7. As you are also aware, a question has been asked regarding whether the Ambassador's facility would constitute a private recreational facility under the city's code. While Ambassadors is a nonprofit Ohio corporation, this status does not change the fact that Ambassadors is a private entity and that the Ambassador's facility would be classified as a private recreational facility under the city's zoning code. No one can just show up and use the facility as they can at the city-owned parks. Generally, public entities take the form of governmental bodies. All other entities are considered private. CEGRC 123-27A. Public entities include a state agency and a state institution of higher education. RC 149-011A. Generally defining public office for public records purposes to include any state agency, public institution, political subdivision, or other entity established by the laws of Ohio for the exercise of any function of government. Summit County Ordinance 1106-01 generally provides that public recreation facilities are those dedicated to or owned by a city public body. However, an entity can be nonprofit, not-for-profit, or charitable organization and still constitute a private entity for zoning purposes. Simply put, an organization does not become a public entity just because it does not make money for profit. See, for example, the YMCA, which has owned private property and a business operation in Macedonia for decades. Black's Law Dictionary defines the following pertinent terms. Private corporation, a corporation founded by and composed of private individuals principally for a non-public purpose, such as manufacturing, banking, and railroad corporations, including charitable and religious corporations. Public corporation, a corporation that is created by the state as an agency in the administration of civil government, and a government-owned corporation that engages in activities that benefit the general public while remaining financially independent. Such a corporation is managed by a public appointment board. Private property, property protected from public appropriation over which the owner has exclusive and absolute rights. Public property, state or community-owned property not restricted to any one individual's use or possession. Public use, property, the public's beneficial right to use a property or facility subject to condemnation. Further, even if there were some sort of functional equivalency test to determine whether Ambassadors would be functioning as a public recreation facility, Ambassadors would likely not be considered the functional equivalent to a public entity such as equivalency tests require. For instance, the private entity, 1, perform a governmental function, 2, have a significant level of government funding, 3, have a significant level of government involvement or regulation, and 4, be created by the government. See State EX, for example, Orion House Inc. versus Montgomery 2006. 110 Ohio, State Doc 3D456, concerning the functional equivalency test for purposes of Public Records Act. Obviously, any such element are lacking in regard to Ambassadors. In addition, the Ohio Revised Code defines what constitutes a public recreational facility in RC Chapter 5709 concerning taxation. RC 5709-81 exempting public recreational facility use for athletic events provides for a tax exemption for recreational facilities only if all the following elements are met. The property on which the facility is located is owned by a political subdivision, controlled or managed by the political subdivision or by a similar corporation under the direct control of the political subdivision, and whose members and trustees are appointed by the political subdivisions. Not used for more than a specified number of days by a private entity for profit. Under the direction and control of the political subdivision or managing corporation under the direct control of the political subdivision. Primary users are controlled and managed by the political subdivision or a managing corporation under the direct control of the political subdivision. And all revenues and receipts are derived accrued to the political subdivision owning the property. Again, any such elements are lacking in regards to ambassador's stated use of the property. Finally, case law determining whether a political entity is using property so to constitute a public versus private recreational facility indicates that ambassador's facility would not constitute a public facility. Generally, where a fee is charged to those who wish to enter, the landowner has a right to exclude others from use of the property, and the land is held by a private owner. The use of the land is determined a private, non-public use. For instance, in Puckett versus Scotia Township Board of Zoning Appeals, 163 Ohio 3D 535, the court was asked to determine whether the residents of the property, which were charging people to visit and use their lake, were operating the lake as a public park. The Puckett court determined that the characteristics of the Pay Lake, similar to the proposed ambassador's facility, did not qualify as a public park because it was not publicly owned. It was not open to the general public, but only to those willing to pay a fee, and it was not used to benefit the public. The Puckett court analogized the operation to a golf course, a racket club, an amusement park, a game hunting preserve, a raceway, or virtually any outdoor commercial enterprise that provides a service and amusement to the general public for a fee. Similarly, in Guernsey versus Ridgefield Township, 1980, the Ohio Supreme Court distinguished between a park serving the public and a park serving private interests. The Guernsey court found that where the private landowner wanted to create a park which would not be for common benefit of all persons and would involve the charging of fees for use, the owner was engaging in private land use. Issues related to height, hours of operation, noise, and parking are all controlled by various codes in existence and will be enforced unless the variance is granted or the code is amended. Therefore, based upon the foregoing, it is my opinion that ambassadors would constitute a private entity operating a private recreational facility and would therefore operate as a permitted use under the city's zoning code and be obligated to pay pertinent retail and income taxes. Nonprofit status is pertinent only to federal and state income tax conditions for the corporate entities involved. Please feel free to contact me if you have further questions.
Thanks, you did really well.
A lot of work.
Okay, let's see, that's all the comments we had written. All right, I've been asked to allow some comments from the public. So if I could have you gentlemen relinquish your seats, I know they're comfortable. And I have a sign-in sheet up here, so you're welcome to come up and address the commission. All you have to do is sign in and give your address.
I have a question as far as, the, screening. You're saying, 5 to 6 foot mound with, varied, shrubbery, trees. What about fencing? Is there any privacy fencing along the line? The original plan showed fencing.
There's none shown on the site plan now, but that certainly could be something that the planning commission could require.
Yeah, I'm concerned because of, for security and the headlights. And then the other question I have, parking spaces. You mentioned that, with the other soccer facilities, that there's never that many people there. So we're talking 273 spots and 107 spots total, right? For both plans. So that's 400 spots. So we're never going to have 400 cars back there, probably, because there isn't seating for 400, or there's not room for 400 people to play. Am I?
I don't know.
So why do they have to have that many spots?
By law, per square foot. And
Well,
so
can't we change that?
Well, I don't know. That's a good question for you, Brian.
I'm just taking a look at the requirements we have for parking and reducing parking, because we maintain a minimum, but we don't set a maximum in the zoning code. So we say you have to have this many, but we don't say you can't exceed this many in our zoning code. But
I mean, my point is if only maybe 40 kids can play at a time. So even if they have company coming, even if there's 250 spots, that would put the parking lot further away from the residential homes.
another option too is, I'm sure the applicant would, likely consider maybe land banking some of that parking. So if performance shows that only 80 spaces are needed, then they could design it for the amount that they think that they could have. But if it never comes to fruition, then it just doesn't get built. That's very common especially in like Walmart parking lots. Because oftentimes the first knee-jerk reaction is to design everything for Black Friday, and well, Black Friday only happens once a year. So oftentimes we'll tell designers to look at land banking the parking, and let's really base it on actual utilization. So that could be something that could be discussed with the applicant in this scenario, and it's a good suggestion, I think, to consider.
That might be hang on just a second.
I'm sure our client would not want to pay for parking they would never use, so I think in consideration for this, we would talk to Brian and work with the city staff to determine exactly what we feel is necessary with the input from our client. I mean, we don't want to put 400 car parking there if we don't need it. We were following the code, that's all we were doing. If we could get a lesser amount,
We're basing it on phase one, which is only the first build, so you have to consider parking for phase
I
two.
mean, they should know how many spots they anticipate needing, and why should the city make them put more spots in, which infringes even more on us residents on South Bedford.
Only
You know.
because that's what we usually do to make sure there's enough for Black Friday, just like
Well,
you
they
said.
could even have
Yeah.
gravel,
Sure,
along there,
sure.
there's plenty of area.
Well, you brought up
for
a good
big
point,
event.
something that could be considered, absolutely. Especially, I have to say, you've been very, very, in this whole process, you've been working with everyone, the residents in the city, very, very well. So publicly, I'd like to thank you for that, because everything that's said, you try and listen to and respond, so thank you. What now?
Okay. Arborvitaes, these are my arborvitaes in my yard.
They're beautiful.
Aren't they beautiful? They're like topiaries.
Jeez.
So, please do not plant, something that the deer like to eat, okay? The deer have been working on them through the years, but this past winter, I think I have to dig them up.
Certain arborvitae are deer resistant and others
Yeah,
not so much.
They're
So,
Cold.
Well, going back to where you said the fence, now, one of the things that we're talking about, Sonia, is trying to do something with this to make it more appealing by having, say, for instance, colors of top. I think that was
yes.
the color.
Yeah.
Something that wouldn't be hard to look at and so stark.
Right.
All right, you're going to have a mound there. Will the fence be too stark? I think it would be better with the fence with some foliage.
Could be a brown fence.
Maybe a combination of the two.
They make the plastic fences that are brown.
But you'd be all right with all fence? The neighbors there, because you'd be looking at it.
Yeah, with the trees, yeah. That way people can't come across.
All right,
our
so,
yards. I would feel safer.
Jerry suggested that the fence be on, in other words, if there's a mound, that the fence be on the
It could
soccer
be
side
on
of the
the
mound.
soccer side, and then the trees and shrubbery on top of the mound.
I see.
It's just to
Okay.
keep people from walking over the mound and seeing what's on the other side.
Well, if you're saving money on parking, would you consider putting a fence up?
Yes.
And then, my last thing, they're sinking this 12 feet into the ground, so it's 22 feet high. their first stadium was going to be 70 feet. They need 70 feet for this international soccer stadium. There's a 35-foot limit. When they figure the height, does this 22-foot building come into play? Because why are they sinking at 12 feet when 35 is the max, when they would be at 34 feet? So they would be under the max. Why are they going through the expense of sinking it unless it has an effect on the next building?
It does. The second building is taller. The second building complies with the code as it was interpreted to us from the city's staff. And that is, midway up the roof, it must be no taller than 35 feet. This building then would adjoin that eave and come down lower. That's why this building is below the 35 feet.
Is that
So our intent is to comply with the code both now and in the future. That's why this, because the entire major field will be set into the ground also. But its roof is,
What's the average, what's the height of the, I understand you're talking average height, but what's the highest part of phase
I
two?
think it's 53 or 54 feet at the very peak. But it's 35 feet at the midpoint as is required by the code.
The zoning says 35 feet.
All right, let's keep it quiet. We're not,
So 51 or 55, I forget what, I
I
couldn't
don't
hear.
know exactly what it is, but
Okay.
we have talked to the city staff architect, Mike and Dennis, about
What's it, it's a building shall not be erected at height greater than 35 feet. I don't see anything about the other part.
In the
Well, we're
definition, it's.
we're only submitting for phase one.
Between the.
No, I understand, but you said you said you were going to, that you were going to be in compliance with phase two without.
Correct.
So I'm just trying to figure this out because it seems like people are saying different things. What were you saying, I'm sorry?
Well, I was just saying how they probably got,
Okay.
they take the overhang lowest part from the highest peak and divide it by two.
But I'm just saying the building height doesn't say anything about that.
It's,
you
it's
know,
how
the
it's
question
defined.
is, do we have anything now, well, we don't have my full staff here unfortunately due to sickness, but if we have anything now that's 50 feet high because of
I'm sorry.
Well, as you say, it's, the building height then is defined in the code. It's, section 113302. It's, definition 14. It's height of the building,
Say it
height of a
again.
structure. 113302, definition 14.
Okay.
Height of a building, height of a structure. And that's where the definition comes into play. So when it says 35 feet for the maximum building height, then you have to look to see how building height is measured per the code, and that's what the applicant has done.
All right.
So it's within the code in terms of the building height.
Okay, did you get one of these, Bernie?
Yes,
Okay.
Just a little comment on the use, and basically everything that he said in there, I felt also was consistent with what I had found. But the one point that he didn't really, they didn't spend time on was talking about private versus commercial. And just in a couple of them, just pointed out, it said a private recreational facility may not be open or available to members of the public. Also, for instance, in the Hudson, it said that private recreational play facilities for use of residents and property and guests, private greenhouses, not for commercial purposes. And in a couple other places in here, it basically points out that another aspect is commercial. And we're, the one area that we had some concern on is that if there is no restriction on renting it out, it could go way beyond a private it could go way beyond a recreation facility for that matter. So it's correct that a soccer club is a recreation facility, but based on the ultimate soccer that they referred to, I went on their website and found that they rented it out for everything and anything, and it appeared that it shouldn't really have no restriction. on what could be happening inside.
So you could have a rock concert there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
is the point. In other words.
So then you would need all that parking.
And it would be a little noisy.
Yeah.
How would you feel about restricting its use, or is that non-economical?
Yeah, I think we're gonna keep it as much as possible, a soccer arena. We're gonna try and keep our programs filling this place up, but, we also have to stay economically viable, so we're not gonna try and bring in Megadeth or anything like that. We're gonna try and make this a sports facility, and that's what we know, and that's what we do. But,
So it'd be public use?
no, we would, well, we would go out to private use, where we would go out and try and find groups that would wanna use the facility.
Lacrosse facility or baseball practice.
I mean, that's,
Public.
you can go all,
It can be public.
I'll let the government determine.
Well, I think, Bernie, we don't want, we can very easily make it conditional, as we've done with a lot of things tonight, or it's not to be used for, public use. And then we could maybe even put some restrictions on it, so that we don't get into anything, so that they can be economically feasible. Maybe there's a middle ground there, where they can be economically feasible, yet we're not getting into something that draws huge crowds.
Just one quick definition, they call it the Planner's Dictionary. Private club, a private recreational facility is a private club or recreation facility for which a membership charge may be made and which are only open to bona fide members and their guests. You know, that kind of sums up, our thinking about.
So in other words, they have a membership. Did you hear what he was saying? Were you able to hear that? Could you repeat that, please, a little louder?
Just called Planner's Dictionary, private recreational facilities, private clubs or recreation facilities for which a membership charge may be made and which are only open to bona fide members and their guests. In other words, you couldn't rent it out to a rock band, or a tractor pull,
Okay. Well, that's something that needs to be considered.
Mayor, I think we can eliminate rock concerts and tractor pulls and rodeos and things like that.
That's for sure.
All right.
This is to promote athletics and internationally, and it's.
I mean, if it's gymnastics or something, the key thing is like membership. To us, if you have members, you know who they are. They probably are gonna be a little bit responsible because they know they'll be accountable. Again, if you just open it up to anything, you don't know who's there, in addition that we don't know who's there.
Well, would
That's
you be
kind of
willing
something
to work with us to limit what you would have?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, instead of a private membership, we could have it where it's written that they can only do certain things up to this point. That's it.
Right. And again, a private recreation facility, or soccer, things like that.
Sure, soccer, baseball, who knows who will go in there and use
Lacrosse.
it. Lacrosse,
Lacrosse, football.
rugby,
Rugby.
yeah.
And what about the hours of, operation? Can they be open whenever they want? 7 days a week until 2 in the morning?
I don't remember seeing that anywhere.
The original request was for midnight, 7 days a week.
What are the hours, going projected to be?
That's not been determined. The midnight that we talked about was the informational meeting that we had for residents. And we talked about midnight being, generally when the people going to this facility would be leaving.
Yeah, if they're there for sporting, geez, oh man, I can't see.
Correct.
Well, would you work with us on hours?
Sure.
Okay. Questions? All right. And we have that all in the record, so, we got direction. Thank you for testifying. Is there anyone else? All right, I'm thinking maybe this is, we have two things here. Number one, we have to decide, can we say this would be okay conceptually? Or do we want to wait until we get some of these other questions answered before you give the conceptually? For instance, the traffic lights and all of that doesn't, you know, is that a factor? Is it a factor? I don't know if anybody else didn't get one, but these opinions are up here. I made some extra ones from Demert and Associates. What's your pleasure?
Done.
I think that-
Done. Just-
Oh, yes, come on down. Here you are.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Marcia Brennan. I live on 8059 South Bedford, which if anybody knows is next to the ball field.
The baseball field?
Yes, Memorial Field, whatever you want to call it. And I think my issue is traffic. I have spent 15 minutes, 20 minutes to turn right on the Highland between 4 and 6 o'clock. So if you want to put a traffic light at, I don't know the name of that road.
Highland Point.
No, not Highland, where they're going
Point.
to the
Highland
Highland Point. That makes no sense when the people of South Bedford are stuck. They can't get out on the 82 and they can't get out on Highland. My husband in March had a major emergency. If that EMS squad could not have gotten out, I don't know what we would have done. So to not have that traffic light functioning, there was an accident, what, 3-4 weeks ago there? Or maybe a little longer. You cannot go left. Forget it. So if you do not do something about the traffic, adding more people coming out into that, you need to sit there in that traffic at 4 o'clock, trying to make a right-hand turn. You can't. It's almost impossible.
I'm not disagreeing, all right. Our police chief is well aware of that, and he's there more than once. And we have a company that we work with that does nothing but adjust and set traffic lights to traffic patterns. Signal Services, their name. So these companies are the ones that make recommendations to the chief, who then institutes them. So you're talking about more traffic coming? Yeah, and it's not only gonna be, if this place never even develops, we're gonna have more traffic.
Well, the thing of it is, if you come down from Twinsburg, people are stuck on Shepherd. Then they come down even further. That road, Highland, can be backed up all the way. So people coming out on Shepherd have an issue, then they come down to South Bedford have an issue, and then you're saying you're gonna put a traffic light that flashes. That's ridiculous.
Well, that might not happen, okay? That was something right now that's on hold, because we have some experts that feel it might not even be necessary.
Well, you have a traffic light. Use the one that's there. That would save money. I mean, control it that way.
Yes, again, I am not the expert, I'm just the guy here trying to answer your questions as best I can. And the chief goes to experts to get recommendations on how this light should work. What we need, if that light is an issue that bad, we need to meet, perhaps have a streets and highway meeting of our council, meet and discuss all of these things with the chief right there, all right? But right now, we're looking at adding something that, I'm not trying to defend anything, but I'm just trying to tell you what I hear, okay? That the hours of operations might not be in a conflict with the major points of when traffic is at its worst. At 4 o'clock, traffic is at its worst, would you say?
I'd say between 4 and 6, because you turn the
All right.
light out. As soon as the school traffic is done, that light goes off, it becomes a flashing light.
Right.
So, but if they have soccer at whatever time, you know, I don't know what time. they
Well,
would-
what time do they usually start?
Our teams usually train from 5 onwards, 5 o'clock, yeah.
So at 5 o'clock, you'll be coming to that facility.
Yeah, some of our teams will be. There will be 2 teams, 2 to 3 teams training at a time.
You're gonna have a problem. I live there, I see it. You're
Yeah,
gonna
well,
have a
we have a problem there now.
I know, I
Yeah.
know.
I went to the schools because I've been able to get the right to puncture the State Route 8 limited access highway about putting a street right straight next to the school out to 8. And they won't do it because they're gonna put a facility there.
I wanted to.
I mean, we're desperately looking for a way to
I
do it.
want to tell you the school, I have lived in that house to get out to go to work. And the most I waited is 10 seconds or 15 seconds. They are very conscientious of that. But the flow going on, how are they going to get in? They're going to have a terrible time getting into their facility. Somebody's going to have to, the traffic.
And again, too, what are we doing about that? Well, right now, I don't have all the engineers here, so I can just tell you what they tell me. And one of the issues we're talking about is turning lane right there in front of the school, so it would be three lanes wide. This is not a perfect traffic scenario, no matter how you look at it for South Bedford. It's just not. And we do have concerns about it. But like I say, these fellows are trying to do whatever they can to appease the people. And I like that. I'd rather have that than somebody come in here like they own the place and try and tell us what they want to do. So that's good. So good, healthy dialogue is good. Thank you for your input. Yes, I agree with you. It's not a good situation, but maybe we should put a toll booth on Highland. That might work.
Whiten it.
Widen it, we did that once and they're still paying on it. That's done by assessment. That's where the problem comes in. So the businesses there are paying for the widening to 3 lanes. So it's a very, very complex, so maybe if we want to widen it to 4 lanes or 5 lanes, what do we do with that brand new bridge? It's 2 lanes. See, so we got all these things that are running through our minds, so we're looking at every option we can possibly have. In fact, some of the hopes are that what we're doing with Route 82 and widening it to 6 lanes in places might draw people over that way and take them off Highland, possible. You know, we gotta try everything we can, so you're not speaking on deaf ears.
And Mayor, I just want the mayor to know that we're going to do everything we can to coordinate with the city's engineers and our engineers to talk about these issues with them and with the other members of either council or whatever to try and resolve those things. Our concern is that we feel we've got a wonderful project that fits in with the zoning and we would like some kind of an approval so that we can move forward. I mean, if you tell us that this is an approvable thing pending getting these various things in line, we can move forward. We can do the soil borings, we can get the engineers together. And that's what we're trying to do tonight, is to get your feedback and understand that we've got an approvable project, provided we comply with some things.
So-
I hope you don't table it because of this, because now we don't know whether we should spend money to keep going on this thing or what.
And you spend money this
Spend a
far
lot of money,
engineering.
yeah, we're gonna spend more money to put the building in the ground, to comply and all that, but we're asking for your advice and we're asking for your preliminary approval so that we can do what Brian is saying, get all this engineering done, meet with the fire department, get the engineers together so we can move forward. That's what we're trying to do, and do this in as much compliance as we can.
Yeah, you are bending over backwards, trying every way you can. Thank you very much, ma'am. Any other comments this evening? Yes, sir, come on down. Thank you.
Brad Summers, I'm at 8189 South Bedford. I have a couple of questions. Number one is, the plans that we saw show for phase one, the trees are still all down where phase two would be. I wanna know if that, for that 2-year period when phase two is being considered, whether the trees will be still there or,
Well, let's put it this way, if we make it conditional now that the property has to have the buffer, the entire length, because you're gonna be digging up dirt to put this building in the ground, we can make the buffer the entire length, the fence the entire length, and the vegetation, then it wouldn't matter if the trees are down, correct?
right, so, well, what I'm saying though is, right now, those trees provide us some sound barrier from the railroad.
Oh,
You're talking about existing
Right,
trees.
so when those trees go away, then and it becomes a parking lot, then, or a flat land, then the sound just comes right at us.
I think the best thing to do is block the track. I mean, we have a real problem there, we do. At least we don't have as many whistles as we did, but we still have some. And I understand what you're saying, but that could happen unless we have somebody there. You know, phase two is a want to. Will they be able to? I don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. Maybe they won't even build it. So you wanna leave those trees, well, it would be nice, but
Phase two is what makes our property values go down the toilet. Because if you look, I don't care how pretty you make it, when you look out the back, there's no real estate appraiser that would say that that's not gonna cost us 20% of our property values. When that massive, no matter how short you make it, and many fences you put up, and whatever else, we're losing a lot of money. And no one, if you look at the depictions of what it would look like looking out our backyards, you know that that's true. So, it sounds like we're destined to lose a whole bunch of money. And I don't feel like the city's protected us from that. I understand that you can say, well, the height of the building is calculated by the difference between this edge of the roof and the peak of the roof. Well, if you go 70 feet down to zero, that complies, but that's not the intent.
so nothing can go there.
What's that?
Nothing can go there. Or what if something else would go there? I mean, a regular building, like we have right now.
If you put a 35-foot flat roof in there, then that's 15 less feet we have to look at. So, and
Do you think that would change the?
it's just a factor that, we don't know what else might go in there. Most of us were told nothing could go in there, so.
Well, there's a lot of restrictions on the property with right-of-ways, easements, all those kind of things, so it has to be the right shape things. Ever since I've been mayor, and that's 12 years now, the city's been desperately trying to sell that property, trying to get the tax dollars back. Basically, most of that money would go to the schools, so it would be like a windfall for the schools. So we were actively pursuing selling that right along. Nobody wanted to buy it until the Highland Road Bridge was completed, and then all of a sudden we got more and more people interested. Out of some of the people that came to us, one of them was a trucking facility, a depot. Well, that's going in up on, in Twinsburg, and to me, having dealt with trucks in people's backyards, Thistle Ridge, that's a real problem, being that close. So, we're looking at a way to get the money that the city has tied up in there and that the schools have tied up in there. And we are actively pursuing selling it. Yes, that's a truism. All right, but we have somebody that's interested in trying to work with you in any way they can and make all kinds of concessions to try and make it as best they can.
And if it was phase one and that was the end of it, then it's less impact. But when you go to a peak of 55 feet, and we have to look at that for the entire length of all our backyards, that's where I think that
I understand.
that zoning is meant to protect us from that, because it shouldn't cost us that much money.
Yeah, well, a good example of how things were done is the old aerosol systems building. It's huge. I mean, it's right across the street from houses. And now it's a pig in the poke. They can't even sell it because it's contaminated. All right, so that building is in the L1 district. And because of the fumes and all the rest of the stuff that came out of there, I can remember Joe Miglerini having people at every single council meeting complaining about aerosol systems. So now there's a big white elephant sitting there, right smack dab across the street from these houses. That happened already once. It happened at the east end. Now it's the west end where something like that might happen. But it's not like aerosol systems. It's not like a factory that's producing something or making noise or smells or that kind of thing.
Right, but it's a high turnover traffic wise. If you have a small business at the end, like the other buildings on there, they show up at 8 o'clock in the morning. Their employees are known, they come to work every day. They leave 9 hours later, and potentially a second shift comes in, but you don't have the constant flow of kids. So in a lot of ways, that's preferable.
Well, one of the people that lived across from aerosol systems sold their house for almost double what they paid for. I can't believe it. I can't believe how much money they got for that house. And that's terrible.
I understand. I've heard you say that before, but I'm not concerned with what I paid for it and what I sell it for. I'm concerned with how much I could have sold it for if I wasn't harmed. So just because I make money and I make less money than I could have, it doesn't pacify me. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I still lost money, whether I
You're
made money,
still
whether I made more than I thought.
assuming that you're gonna lose money. You're still making that assumption. Nobody will ever know that till the time.
Right, you just know what it values at now and what it would value at in the future.
Well, and point taken. One of the things they're trying to deal with is whatever we can do in such a way to make it less obtrusive, like color or something like that, but it's still gonna have some life.
It's just, you can't get over that it's big. That's what you can't get over. So, the other question is regarding sound coming from the building, with soccer balls hitting a metal wall, those kind of things. Is anything been done to address that?
I don't think that would be a factor compared to the trains. I mean, soccer balls hitting the wall, doors slamming, you're gonna, you're gonna be getting some of that, but I don't think you'll hear the balls. Personally, I mean, I'm not an expert on balls hitting walls. I didn't go to college for that.
Mayor?
Yes.
Can I say something? We're netting the inside of that. We do not want that live of a building where those things are bouncing off.
So you don't put that caping.
There'll be a net there to prevent the balls from hitting and coming back off, so you won't have that.
So, I mean, it sounds like we don't have much of a choice on this option. It's kind of my opinion that just because something is legal and it passes requirements doesn't mean that it's the right thing to do. I don't think it's right for a Christian organization to take money away from neighbors, no matter how nicely they treat them. It's, people should have an ability to be protected from that.
And that's a little bit on the philosophical side, and I agree with
understand
you.
it.
But we have to deal with ordinances, what can be allowed.
But there's supposed to be some humans involved that care about people. So,
Well, I don't think we don't care about you. We have to do.
costing me $40,000 if you approve it, so.
Do you-
Don't, you put that big building in there, you cost me
No,
$40,000.
we did not cost you $40,000. If we're going by the codes, I mean, I'm trying to, I understand all these things, and I keep wanting to say the thing of, why'd you move next to an LI? But,
They told us that nobody would ever build
and
that.
they can tell you lots of stuff. I mean, unless you own that property behind you, you can't guarantee that. Somebody will find
That's
a
another
use.
point.
Somebody will find a use for a piece of property that's the size of a postage stamp. They'll find a use for I mean, I hate to
The
say it.
city was trying to sell this for many years, but no one approached us and said, hey, would you like to protect yourself by buying this property behind you?
You could
Village
still
told you
do
you
that.
couldn't do it. Yeah, you can do it right now.
You could do it right
Go
now.
off from their noses.
That way the schools will get their tax, and we'll get our
There's an
tax.
agreement in place to purchase the land as a whole if it gets approved. So we can't, they're not allowed to sign a second agreement that pulls it out from under them.
Okay, so but don't
Just,
start.
we didn't know
telling
that-
the city that they're costing you money, because
Well,
they're, you know, there's
The
codes that we have to
The laws
enforce.
and the process cost me money, whether that makes you individually responsible or not.
No, it does not.
It is, I still feel like the human element needs to come into factor.
It does, but we cannot deny them just because we don't like it. We can't. We will be sued.
It's already gone to court several times and it's been lost every time.
That's my 2 cents.
Thank you. All right, anybody else? All right. Conceptually, to put this building up, doing everything that they said that they would do. Can they get a conceptual agreement from the planning commission? Is there any?
I don't think we have to listen, but there's gonna be a lot of ifs that are gonna have to be satisfied before they get full approval. And I think, you know, it's, at some point when they bring it back, every single one of those is gonna have to be
It will have to be all plus. But where do they stand now if they bring it back and everything is done according to the way they said they were gonna do it? Dave?
I would say we should consider this, like Mr. France said, a formal review, because we've got lots of things on the table, we don't have them all listed. We have issues with traffic studies.
Yep.
I feel uncomfortable giving any type of conceptual approval.
Anybody else? Frank?
We don't know what we're approving.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think number one, to do the traffic study without having the school in place that day, I think was incorrect. And to do it correctly, I think you have to do that, and then you determine whether you need a light. I think we've done everything backwards on this thing. These guys have been more than accommodating on everything they've done, and I don't think that they'd turn us down on anything we'd ask for. So conceptually, I don't really have a problem with that though either. So I think we need to get the traffic study completed correctly, and then conceptually, and get these other questions answered that Dave talked about as well, and then I think we could conceptually improve it.
But not tonight.
Not tonight.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if I may, I think the issues that have all come out this evening are what I would call performance type issues, nothing that are insurmountable. I think my gut feeling is if a traffic signal is required, I think the applicants already thought that through in their mind and has agreed in their mind that if they have to pay $100,000 for a traffic signal, they're going to do that. I think that's our worst case scenario as a performance standard. So if you play this out right now this evening, worst case scenario is they're gonna have to put in a traffic signal. I think they're already shaking their head saying they know that and they're gonna do it. So the traffic study, while I agree it's extremely important, it's really a performance measure of what's required to mitigate the issue of traffic congestion relative to their project. And I think they're gonna do what they need to do. Conceptually this evening, I think the planning commission really is looking at the use. Is it a permissible use, which I think is hands down really a moot point at this juncture. The law directors opined that it's permitted use in this district. And so conceptually, is the use appropriate? And the general layout of the site, is it appropriate? I think those are all things that are at play this evening. But from a planning standpoint, I think the finer performance standards are things that will be worked out at the next juncture when they come for a site plan approval. But this evening, they're really looking for, I think the applicant's really looking for, yes, we agree that the use is permissible in this district. Yes, conceptually, the layout of the site is generally okay, with the understanding that there needs to be extensive screening to buffer the residents, and that the traffic issue is just that, it's a performance standard that will need to be mitigated, and whatever that requirement is, I think the applicant's saying, we'll do it, whatever it is, but it's not gonna change, in my opinion, it will not change the fact that conceptually, the use is permissible and the layout of the site is generally acceptable. And I think that's, in my opinion, what the commission really is charged with this evening. And the traffic will be something that plays out from a technical performance standpoint and will be accommodated by the applicant.
I still have issues doing it tonight.
Mayor, can I say one last thing?
Sure.
We presented a huge building to you previously, months ago, and you gave us sort of a tentative approval, but you said we have to go get 2 variances in order for this to be a done deal. And we went to the neighbors, and the neighbors said, wait a minute, we don't like those. You have to make this comply. We had already come to you and you had given us a preliminary, yes, this is an approved use, yes.
Yes.
Go get these variances and do your due diligence. And we said, okay, we did. We found out we needed to do more homework. We needed to revise the design. We've done that. We haven't changed the basic concept of this. To me, I mean, for us to go to our client and say, spend more money now, but you really haven't given us, we've got to go to another and another. I understand what Brian's saying, let's work out the details, but you gave us a preliminary approval the last time. We've pulled those variances out. We've made it even more, I think, more acceptable. And all we want to know is, can we keep going on this without having to go back and finish this traffic study? We're willing to put that light in. If that's what it says, put the light in, we'll do it. We'll pay for the timing thing. We'll do those things. But right here, sitting with my client, I can't.
Well, and I think too that we've shown our willingness to compromise. Even by sinking the building into the ground, it's tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars more that our client will spend in doing it that way. And it's for a visual, it doesn't help them in the performance of their building. It's for a visual appeal from the outside. So one is being done strictly to accommodate the other. And so I think that just with what we've shown in our willingness to do that, we're asking that the city, acknowledge that and help us to move forward in continuing to do that, to where what we end up with is going to be a building that
Well, probably.
Yeah.
Any other discussion by the commission?
With a conceptual, if we were given a conceptual approval, like similar to Brian was saying, I mean, they can't come up with a traffic plan that works. There's nothing in our conceptual approval that says we can't deny
Right.
the whole project.
That's
If
correct.
they end up refusing to do what we consider significant, or good enough landscaping, it won't- there's things that we still have to approve, and we're not saying, hey, what you have in landscaping is enough, it's more of the way it says, it's the use okay, there's no variances. We're not nailing down the final plan, there's still a lot of things that gotta look into, the parking, park with the concept. I think it's acceptable. But there's just gonna be a lot of details before we get that final plan approved.
Are you making a motion?
I'll make a motion to give conceptual approval.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Have a motion and a second. I think we're gonna have mixed votes on this, so would you give me a roll call vote, please, Janelle?
Mayor Cookta?
Yes.
Mr. Engel?
No.
Mr. Hopkins?
No.
Mr. Kozak?
Yes.
Mr. Westbrook?
Yes.
That's pretty close. All right, don't come much closer than that, so you have some people that are on the border here, and we have to make sure that you follow up in every way possible.
We will, Mayor.
All right, do I have a motion to adjourn? All right, thank you for coming, everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. What's with the air conditioning?
All